Hello everybody, welcome to another Versus Video Deck Tech. CVM here alongside
BBD.
O'Brien Braun doing it. And we are playing some modern action this week. I am playing a Jund deck a la Mr. Boswell, who got second at Grand Prix Boston. I'm not getting Worcester,
Yeah.
Ville, Berg,
Sauce.
Town.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Grand Prix Boston, which he actually got second the week prior to that in an open, with standard open with green-white aggro, and recently was one of the plethora of X4s that missed to Mr. Reed Duke in the Invitational this last weekend. He did place in the top 16, so Mr. Boswell's on quite a tear, and I'm happy to be playing one of his creations. So this is just your standard Jund deck at first look, but there are some interesting card choices here, namely being a Batterskull in the main, and an Olivia Voldaren is making a comeback. So she used to terrorize everybody alongside Thragtusk and Huntmaster of the Fells back in the old Jund decks of standard yesteryear. And here we're playing it in modern, as it's still very good against decks like Affinity, Pod, or any of the Lingering Soul type decks.
Yeah. Yeah, the card is very powerful. It's a little slow, but once it gets going, it gets really going.
Yep, so since she is a little slow, we need a supporting cast that can actually get us to that mid to late game, and that's where we have all of our removal with Lightning Bolt, Terminate, Abrupt Decay, Slaughter Pact, Liliana the Veil, Maelstrom Pulse. Just really no shortage of it.
Yeah,
since
things are going to die.
That tends to be what Jund does best. And then we have just the normal Jund creatures with Tarmogoyf, Dark Confidant, and Scavenging Ooze. But we do have a Grim Lavamancer that's just kind of hanging out here, which I actually like a lot. So there are a lot of fetch lands being played in Modern, and we're using all of these cheap cards to disrupt our opponent and kill their creatures. And Grim Lavamancer gives us a way to cash in some of those cards as additional control or damage where we need it.
Yeah, it is a little awkward that you have Ooze, Goyf, and Grim Lavamancer all in the same deck. You're really taxing your own graveyard pretty heavily in that regard, but the card is still just extremely powerful.
Yeah, like in the times that it's good, it's going to be real good.
Yeah.
And even at the worst case, if my opponent happens to have Goyf advantage, I can use it to get rid of cards like Liliana and Batterskull if they happen to be in my graveyard to help make their Goyfs be a little more manageable.
Yeah.
We do have the Chandra Pyromaster, which I like quite a bit. And we do actually have some new cards from Khans of Tarkir that have been reprinted, the Onslaught Fetch lands. We have Bloodstained Mire. So Jund is one of the shards from Alara block that doesn't really have all of the enemy colored fetches from Zendikar that can let you get all of your lands. But now that we have the allied color fetches, we have access to Bloodstained Mire and Wooded Foothills is the green-red one.
Yeah.
Now I've opted just to play Bloodstained Mire here since we are primarily black, and I just wanted a fetch that can get all of my dual lands, but can also get basic swamp. So we ended up going with Bloodstained Mire over the Marsh Flats that Mr. Boswell had in his list. We do have Verdant Catacombs that can still nab us this forest if we want it, but we do have Treetop Village that's going to be providing the bulk of our green mana source, and then we also can find Stomping Ground and Overgrown Tomb with our other duals. So having a fetch now that can find a black mana source or Stomping Ground now with Bloodstained Mire, it's a pretty big upgrade, and I think it's going to make a huge difference on the tempo of the game.
Yeah, it definitely will. Like, just being able to upgrade your lands, like, it may seem minor, but it really isn't.
Yeah.
I know at least with Birthing Pod, I've lost a lot of games where I have Misty Rainforest and I can't get
Godless Shrine.
Yeah, you can't get Godless Shrine with Misty Rainforest. And now that you can get, now you have Windswept Heath that just is a strict upgrade. I'm not going to lose those games anymore to that reason. Sometimes
you're stuck with like Linvala and Redcap, and you're like, man, I need to be able to play these over the next 2 turns, and then you can't. Makes me not feel very bad. So this is the main deck for Mr. Boswell's Jund list. Let's go ahead and take a look at the sideboard and see what options we have to combat our Sultai menace that we're battling here in the Versus video.
Almost as good as the Phantom Menace.
Almost. All right, here we are with the sideboard for the Jund deck, and you can see we have 3 Fulminator Mage, just as a way to combat decks like Tron, Scapeshift with their Valakut, Affinity with all the man lands. It's also pretty good in the mirror match since most decks are usually only playing 2 to 3 basic lands if they're 3 colors, and being able to cut them off on a land sometimes can be really important.
Yep.
2 Shatterstorm, which is very good against Affinity. You also it has some abilities maybe in the Tron matchup, but I don't really think you would want it. It's mainly just for Affinity.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times where you're playing your Affinity opponent and you're just like, I want to bury all artifacts.
Yep.
And that's where you draw Shatterstorm. Yeah.
We have 2 Grafdigger's Cage as a way to shut off Snapcaster Mage. You can stop Birthing Pod. It can also stop the flashback from the Storm deck. Now, it does not stop Living End.
Correct.
So please be aware of that. I have seen a lot of people cast Grafdigger's Cage and then still get Living Ended and look real sad when the judge confirms that it does not stop it. So
yeah, Living End doesn't put creatures into play from the graveyard.
It exiles them first.
It exiles them and then puts them into play.
Yep, so they're entering play from the exile zone, which is not affected by Grafdigger's Cage. We have another Olivia Voldaren for all those pesky...
Boo.
For all those pesky Melaripod decks. We have a Sowing Salt along the same vein of Fulminator Mage. 2 Ancient Grudges because I really don't want to lose to Affinity.
Yeah.
Mr. Boswell did not. He actually beat it all day while he was in Boston. We have a Thrun the Last Troll, a Magnum Spray, which is also very good against the Melaripod decks.
Voice
Resurgence and Kitchen Finks. Another Thoughtseize because why not? And a Sword of Light and Shadow, which is a very unique card that you see a lot of Jund decks playing. It's very good in the attrition-heavy matchups. So in the games where all of the Goyfs are going to be dying on both sides of the board, sticking a Sword of Light and Shadow can go a long way towards giving you Goyf advantage.
It also gives your creature protection from Terminate, Abrupt Decay, Dismember, and Path to Exile.
Yep.
Which are Lightning Helix and stuff like that. A lot of the more commonly played removal spells, and since it gives +2/+2,
usually protection from Lightning Bolt as well.
Yep.
So Sword can be killed by Abrupt Decay itself, but we're not all perfect.
Yeah, I mean, what can't? Like
exactly. So this is the sideboard for the Jund deck. We're going to battle some Modern here and see if the boogeyman of the format, I guess, can stand up to something that's kind of new and refreshing. Bit of a brew.
Bit of a brewski.